Hi, Carl. I am awesome. How are you?
I'm great. I'm excited about the WEF conference this week. Did you get your invite?
No, not excited about that. And for whatever reason, I think mine must have got lost in the mail.
I
They probably misspelled my name with a M as in mother instead of N as in Nancy again. What are
That's
you
got to
gonna
be it.
do?
Got to be it. Got to be it. And Netherlands is weather is so beautiful in January. I just don't want to leave, so I'm going to turn mine down. Um, but they released their annual top risks report ahead of the conference, and it is a Christmas tree of a report. I mean, there are lights and colors everywhere. So we'll link to it in the description. People can go check it out. It they base it on a survey of executives, business leaders around the world. So it's very high level, sometimes frustratingly so. They don't get into a lot of details, but it gives some overall themes for what the crust of society are thinking about and generally worrying about. And I think in chatting with you about this week, Rick, misinformation and disinformation, which was their top short-term risk, really caught our eye. And for myself, it came down to all the elections we're having this year. I think there's 70 plus elections around the world in 2024, starting with Taiwan this weekend. So that's one to watch. India, the United States, of course, and I believe Great Britain is also, well, the UK is also voting. Lots of important elections. Over half the planet is voting in these elections. So misinformation and elections, they tend not to mix too well. Obviously, the big scandal uh, going back to 2016 was Cambridge Analytica, where a lot of misinformation was posted on Facebook and looked into later and was thought to manipulate, misinform voters on who they should vote for in the American elections that year. So that's what it got me thinking about. What did misinformation make you think about, Rick?
Well, certainly, I actually think that misinformation and the elections are very closely intertwined. Um, Misinformation for me is huge. Okay, it's part of a troubling package of what AI and AI generated things are bringing along. AI in terms of turning into a sentient being and erasing us from the face of the earth. I have zero worries about that whatsoever. Zero, none, zippo. I just think that that is probably the biggest part of misinformation. What I'm concerned about is, first off, I'm old. Secondly, I've been an educator for a long time, although I have had an extensive professional career, and I still try to remain professionally active. But in my career, I've seen how technology affects us. Um, one of the little experiments I perform with people is ask them, how many phone numbers do you know? And the answer is phone numbers. Why the heck would I know a phone number? Well, the point is actually there's probably a lot of stuff that you don't remember. Basically, our memories have atrophied because no one knows what a Rolodex is anymore. And of course, all of that is in our cell phone, and that might be a pretty benign little thing. But then we get to things like uh, uh, critical thinking, and we just Google stuff. But now the stuff that we're Googling is we're getting bombarded with other stuff from basically marketers that actually affects the context in which we learn stuff. So misinformation, I think, goes way beyond the relatively benign things of not remembering phone numbers. And it behooves us to be ever more vigilant in our critical analysis and our critical thinking. And as a university professor, well, I think that, my university attracts terrific students. The reality is they tend to take things, shockingly, to a certain extent, at face value. That's not to say that they're totally naive, but it's very interesting what they take at face value. Oh, I saw it on the web, to what they don't take at face value. Oh, I saw it on the web. And uh, I can understand why misinformation is a key concern of senior business managers.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Like you say, it's an unknown, right? We don't actually,
Absolutely, yeah.
yeah, we don't know what it's doing to us because our brains are wired a certain way. Like you said, we used to remember phone numbers. We used to use manuals for things as well, right? You used to buy a new gadget or a TV or whatever, and the first thing people would do is open the manual. I don't know when the last time I opened a manual was, because but for two reasons, one good and one bad. That gets into your point. The good one is the devices, the iPhones, and everything that we have today are so well designed for us that it's automatic. We automatically know how to use this thing, how to change the settings, and do what we need. We don't need a manual. But the bad side is we don't question that. We don't question how we're using this thing. We just assume it's in our best. It's acting in our best wishes. It's showing us information that's useful, and clearly it's not, right? Marketers, brands are paying for access um, to what we see, to be able to put things in front of us. We might not buy it the first time, but after seeing things 100 times, maybe we're more inclined to it. Maybe we're more inclined to certain ideas, memes that we come across pretty often. And I don't know how much you believe in the privacy legislation that's being put forward in America and Europe. Um, I don't know how much they can do to protect us.
Yeah. Oh, this is a whole other can of worms um, on the whole privacy stuff. Here's the interesting thing. Okay. Uh, does it really matter if we have privacy if misinformation is so easy to create? If it is so easy to have the world thinking that the Pope bought a puffy coat, uh, if it is so easy to um, create an AI generated movie that simulates some disaster that can move markets, if it is so easy to spread misinformation, who needs the real information if you can spread the information? So if I want to spread something nasty about you, do I actually really need to know anything about you? No. Uh, I can just spread the information.
Yeah.
And uh, that's just one of the negative effects of of misinformation is uh, it behooves us to become ever more uh, critical in our thinking and also knowledgeable in our thinking. It's forced me to rethink one of the things that I've been saying for quite a while now, that knowledge is a commodity in a world where, we can just say, hey, Alexa, and have something solved for us. Perhaps I have to walk that back. Perhaps knowledge is even more critical, i.e., our own self-developed knowledge, uh, to be able to deal with this misinformation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And getting back to like your original point, like what has it done to attention spans and well, there's a few pieces, right? I think I was mentioning to you before we started recording that for a number of years after getting a phone, I found it very difficult to read a book. I could pick one up, I could get a paragraph in, but then my mind is going somewhere else. It wants more. It wants something. It wants a new hit of something, and I trace that directly back to my phone and social media. And I had to turn all that stuff off. The social media, I still have my phone, to really get my attention span back and to be able to read a full length 300-page book and not just read it, but you put it into practice, think about it, see where I agree and where I disagree. And I think those are kind of the critical thinking skills that you mentioned.
Yeah. But also we have another issue on top of that. Okay. That is certainly part of it. And also the fact that, all of our reading is done on a screen. So we just want the bullet points and, the nuances get totally lost in that. But in the corporate trainers that, I, converse with, we're also seeing a huge COVID effect on top of this. And this is, I see the COVID effect in terms of new employees.
Mm.
New employees just coming out of university. We see it in university. Our university students that we've got coming in have been dramatically affected by COVID. Not necessarily for the positive at all. That's my opinion. I'll leave it for others to judge that. But the corporate trainers I deal with onboarding, they're saying that the learning skills have been significantly diminished. So the ability to not even necessarily read a book, but just to sit in a corporate meeting to learn how the corporation does stuff is significantly negatively impacted by COVID. So when we get the rise of AI, when we get the learning effects of COVID and bring them together, of course, misinformation has the potential to basically wreak havoc.
Yeah, yeah. I think layering on top of that, misinformation has the ability to isolate us from
Yeah.
our peers, right? Not just because it's a digital device that we're staring into, um, but yeah, the social trust is broken down a bit as well, because you start to think that uh, you are on one side of an issue and everybody else is on the other side. You lose the nuance that, like you mentioned, you think things are in black and white, and they're really not. They're generally somewhere in the middle. And that plays into the work and training scenarios that you mentioned, because I sit at home 4 days a week and work, and I go into the office 1 day a week. Now I've been in the workforce for a bit more than 10 years, so I know how to build a relationship and ask questions and be proactive. Is somebody starting now who's just gone through COVID and who is a digital native going to proactively ask for help and find a mentor, which I think is very important in your career? I'd say less so. What do you think, Rick?
Oh, absolutely. And the point is we really don't know. Yeah, this is very clearly an unknown unknown. I always like to look at risk as uncertainty and look at risk as being two-sided. On this issue, it's very hard to um, uh, see the upsides.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think we should put our own misinformation across and tell everybody that this is a 5-minute video, even though it went a bit longer. Rick, great talking to you about this, and we will speak again soon.
Take care, Carl. Have fun.